Hey, St. Joe's, it's Father Sod. I'm outside of our parish right here. Wait, our parish? But actually, our parish does have a real connection to this spot right here. Thanks to the work of Cindy Dlugolecki, who is a parishioner and wrote the history of our parish along with Father Snyder, they gave us some background on our awesome parish. And you know, it's all attributable to the hard work of one woman 100 years ago. So here is this woman's story, which is also our story.
Mary Brindle.
Mary Brindle.
Mary Brindle.
Okay, we get it. Mary Brindle, Mary Brindle, Mary Brindle. Okay, why is she so important? Why do we see her name everywhere?
As a teenage girl, she is really responsible and should be considered the foundress of this parish.
It turns out Mary Brindle and our town's history of Mechanicsburg are linked.
Mechanicsburg was founded by a group of mechanics. Mechanicsburg was actually a stopping over point for people traveling from Harrisburg towards Carlisle. And by the time they got here, a lot of times their Conestoga wagons or their carriages would break down and they needed to be repaired. So a group of mechanics settled here and the town became Mechanicsburg. This is the early 1800s. And they were Protestant, German and Protestant. And that's what brought Mary Brindle's father here, David Moriarty, and his wife and his 6-year-old daughter came to Mechanicsburg. He was a carriage painter. And Mary Brindle was sent to Philadelphia when she was 13. Her parents, her father was a very strict Catholic. Her mother was a very strict Presbyterian. But the couple had agreed to raise their daughter Catholic. And because there was a lack of Catholic education in our area, they sent her to Philadelphia to live with David's brother and sister-in-law. But they sent her to Eden Hall to be educated, and she received the sacraments of Holy Communion and confirmation from Bishop John Newman, later to become St. John Newman.
Wow, that's amazing. And that the faith that she acquired and she grew up in Philadelphia, she brought back with her to Mechanicsburg.
Exactly. She came back earlier than expected. She was supposed to get all her education in Philadelphia. However, she was there for 2 years and then came back in 1860 because her father passed away. And she was 15, and she really thought that she was the only Catholic living in the town at the time.
Now, what did she do in order to get the faith moving here in Mechanicsburg?
She had, and this was at 15 years old, she would have prayer meetings in her home on Sundays. As prayer meetings, they would sing hymns, and she did this for about 10 years.
And then she wanted something more. So at that
Yes.
point, she started bothering people.
Yes. The diocese became a diocese in 1868.
Okay.
She did not waste any time. The bishop was Bishop Jeremiah Shanahan, and she was badgering him for a priest to come and say Mass in Mechanicsburg. And she badgered him for 10 years. In 1869, she started her letter campaign. The first Mass was not said until 1879, and it was done at the home of the Smarsh family. And in that time, though, she also got married. She married David Brindle in 1873, and they had 3 children. But I think because she had children, she realized the importance of making sure that they had the sacraments.
And then, so she got the priest to come, and I think it was it became once a year, correct? That they
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
And of course, she wanted more than that.
At the time she had that first Mass, there were 16 people gathered at that first home Mass in Mechanicsburg. But like you said, she kept on badgering the bishop. And so by 1889, this is 10 more years. This is just 10 years of a monthly Mass. She kept on with her letter writing. And she had impressed a priest in Carlisle, Father Rafferty. And Father Rafferty convinced Bishop McGovern at that time to purchase a piece of land for a mission church in Mechanicsburg. So this is 1889. Bear in mind, she started her letter writing campaign in 1869. So she finally now, under Bishop McGovern, there's finally a plot of land for $350 for a mission church.
Well, of course, the first St. Joseph's Church was actually downtown, where the CVS pharmacy is.
Wow, so that was the first home of what we would know later as St. Joseph Parish, but that wasn't the proposed name of the first church mission.
Exactly. The Father Rafferty would have liked the parish to be called after his sister, St. Catherine. So that was the first name of what was to be our parish.
And then the church was built, correct?
Well, another 10 years go by. Her life is in 10-year increments. And so from 1889 to 1899, that land, the CVS parking lot, lay neglected. And finally, another bishop, Bishop McGovern, had died. And so now we have a third bishop in the Diocese of Harrisburg, and it was another Bishop Shanahan. This is the younger brother of the first Bishop Shanahan. And Mary Brindle was invited to a festival at Sylvan Heights. That's where the rectory for the bishop was. She met Bishop Shanahan, and she told him what she wanted, and he promised that he would come to Mechanicsburg. This is in 1899, and he would preach a mission. He was part of a mission, a week-long event, with about 300 non-Catholics to come and hear a series of talks by Catholic priests and bishops. And Bishop Shanahan was one. And it was during that week in October of 1899 that he promised Mary Brindle that he would build her mission church.
Finally, it was built, correct?
It was started, he wanted it, this was October 1899, he wanted it built by the end of the year. Well, that didn't happen. He was very frustrated with the procrastination of the Mechanicsburg mechanics, so to speak. He wrote several letters complaining. I think one of my favorites is when he was very chagrined at the fact that they weren't moving fast enough. He said, "I think that your people at the next session of the legislature ought to present a petition to have the name of your town changed." So he didn't like the word he didn't like the town Mechanicsburg, even though he's the one who picked the name St. Joseph for our parish because we were based as a town of mechanics, and he said that St. Joseph was a mechanic. And also one of my favorites is that the parish, the chapel was dedicated in August of 1900, and it wasn't fully furnished at that point. So in September, he wrote a note to Mary Brindle, and he said, "I would advise you not to put much money into a carpet. A cheap carpet will do quite well enough and will last for years."
Well, what's funny is that a bishop gets involved in these minutiae.
At one point, he wrote to her, giving her advice on how the building should be electrified.
I'm here outside of our archives at St. Joe's, and I'm looking at a few of these letters, and they're really interesting. In one of these letters, Bishop Shanahan writes to Mary Brindle that he doesn't care what color it is inside of the church, but then he proceeds to draw a diagram of what he wants the church to look like, especially the sanctuary.
He got very detailed. So finally, the first Mass was said in August of 1900, and we were officially a chapel.
And how many people attended Mass regularly?
About 25.
And was there a note of how much that church cost to build?
It's going to be $2,000.
So then at this point, we were a mission of St. Patrick's in Carlisle. So we were not our own parish yet. But then Mary Brindle passed away, correct?
Another 10 years passes where she was able to enjoy her mission church for 10 years. She died in 1910. And when she passed away, Bishop Shanahan was one of the celebrants, which when I read that I was very touched by that. And he praised her efforts at that point and in glowing terms. And also she asked that people sit one per pew, so the church would look full. So that was about 25 people and in one in each pew. That was her request. That was one of her dying requests.
How do we explain how we got from CVS to where we are today?
Okay, well, what happened in the 1940s, World War II, and the Naval Depot came to Mechanicsburg. And that was when we had an explosion of Catholic parishioners.
Okay.
And that's when you no longer needed one person per pew to make the church look full. It was actually filled to overflowing. And at that point, the diocese said, okay, St. Joe's can become a parish in its own right. In 1950, 1951, they broke ground for what is now what we call Brindle Hall, but it was the church then.
What happened is it's kind of an interesting thing. It's true here, and it's true of many of the churches in our diocese. When a parish was founded, they first built a school. The intention was that eventually what was the church was intended then to become a gym. And so if you look at some of the gyms that you go into now after the churches have been built, they look like churches. But that's the reason. And the same here at St. Joe's. The original church, which was very small, eventually they knew that they would be able to build a church and that would become a gym, which it did.
And at one point, the church became so full that they took that social hall and they made it part of the church.
If you're standing in Brindle Hall and you're looking at the kitchen, to the left, what is now cordoned off was opened up and at one point became additional seating for the church.
And then they created this round, and I'm not describing this very well. The altar became round, and then the priest would have to sort of preach to both parts of the L.
Because you were actually standing at the ambo, and to your right was part of your congregation, and to the left was the church. So you were actually preaching to a pillar.
But then I remember too, the church became so full from that point that the overflow went over to, they called it a different Brindle Hall, but it later became part of the school. Brindle Hall kept on moving. And that's when they decided, well, I guess first of all, St. Joseph became the mother parish for St. Elizabeth Ann Seton. And then that took care of some of the overflow problem. But then years later, we still had more people than we could accommodate. And then that's when we built the church we're in right now, 1980, 81.
Right after the church was built, there was a rash of church fires in Harrisburg. And at the time, there was no security system in the church. So there was great fear about someone getting into the church and setting it on fire. So until the security system could be installed, it was a period of weeks. We had parishioners volunteer and spend all night here in shifts in order to protect the church. It's a reflection of the faith of the people of Mechanicsburg, again, starting with a teenage girl.
Oh, thank you so much, Cindy Dlugolecki and Father Snyder, for helping us learn a little bit about our parish, our history. That video could have been an hour and a half, 2 hours long. There's just so much to get into about just the short time of our parish's history and of our Catholic faith here in Mechanicsburg. And I'd also like to thank the archivists, the ladies who help in the archives, for helping us put this video together. If you think about it, one woman who comes into a town of just one Catholic helped build this parish, a parish of men and women and children that now equals 7,500. What an awesome, beautiful gift that Mary Brindle gave to Mechanicsburg, bringing Jesus Christ and his sacraments to this very parish. What impact will we have if the work of Mary Brindle can bring 7,500 people under this roof? What will we do? What will be our legacy? It is so great to be a part of your parish family, St. Joe's. May God bless you, and I look forward to seeing you soon, hopefully at Mass on Sunday or on the live stream. But know we're always praying for you. God bless you.